Alright, so in order for us to basically take the rough sketch that we completed the last couple days and create an Inventor drawing, we're going to need to open up AutoCAD Inventor. Inventor is going to be the program that we use to create the block. Okay. Once we create the block on Inventor, we are going to then be able to cut out our shapes that we have created in the rough sketch into our overall design. Remember that your rough sketch does not have to be exactly the same as the final design, which is what you're going to create today. So the rough sketch is just a guide. Okay? It's something that's our initial plans. Those initial plans can be changed, just like we talked about before, where the design process is set up so that modifications can be made along the way. So the first thing that I'm going to do to get started is I'm going to go into the Marine Design Unit, and I'm going to go down and I'm going to look at the step that we are on. Step 3, the creating the rough sketches should be completed at this time, and you should have a finished rough sketch to be able to work with. Step 4 is the 3D CAD boat drawing on Inventor, which is what I'm showing you today. So if you wish to, instead of watch a video, instead you would like to go in and actually use the tutorial PDF, you click on it and it's going to open up inside your browser window as a PDF format. So it's step-by-step instructions, which sometimes can be easier than watching the video, pausing and restarting all the time. Other than that, this particular tutorial, there is a tutorial available to you in the YouTube channel. You click on the YouTube channel and then go into my playlists. So this is what you would be looking at when you go into the YouTube channel. Go into my playlist and look for the Marine Design. You're going to have to look at all of the playlists. And in the Marine Design Unit, you will see 2 different videos that are right here. And then it will start playing immediately because they are in a playlist. So, like I said, I have open, I'm going to use this rough sketch as my template, the one that I'm going to be modeling my design off of on Inventor. And here is the directions that I'm going to be using to do that. So the first step tells me that I need to open up AutoCAD Inventor, and AutoCAD Inventor should be loaded onto the screen. There is my empty screen. Then I'm going to need to go to New, and I need the metric tab selected. Go into Standard Millimeters IPT. Click on that and hit OK. And a grid will appear, a 2D grid. Remember that the 2D grid is going to show you the X and Y values, and the Z is something that we're going to be able to view at a later time. So we are drawing in 2D at this time. This is the red is the X and the green is the Y. Also, at this time I want to show you that there are 2 different windows that are open up next to the grid space. And if you want to get rid of, if for some reason you accidentally close those out, like I just did, you need to go up to the View option, go to Toolbar, turn back on the panel bar, go to View, Toolbar, turn back on the browser bar. And then you're simply going to click and drag this down so that you can see all of your viewing, so you can view all the 2D sketch options. When you are in 2D sketch, you will see 2D sketch options. When you are in 3D, you will see the 3D part features. Okay, so this little menu here, this window, will change as you go from sketch mode, which is where you see the graph paper, into 3D. When you're in 3D mode, you're just going to see blue. There will be no grid lines. Okay, so let's go back to my tutorial and look and see where we're at this time. We're now ready to start creating our rectangle. There are 2 different ways we can create a rectangle, whether we decide to use the line tool, or we can use the rectangle tool, just like we do in SketchUp. And at this time, it's important for you to understand that a lot of the tools that you use in SketchUp overlap with the tools that we're going to use in this CAD program. So what that means is that the line tool is similar to the SketchUp tool. That means the center point circle is the same, 3-point arc, 2-point rectangle, and there is a dimensioning option as well. So let's minimize this and try to create the rectangle that we need for the general shape of the block. In order for us to do that, we can click on the line tool, or simply just use the shortcut, the keyboard shortcut, which is just hitting the L on the keyboard. So I'm going to hit L on the keyboard and watch how the line tool is now selected. I'm going to click once on the crosshair, and then I'm going to drag down along the y-axis until I reach the destination that I want. And this is different from SketchUp as well, where in SketchUp you have to enter the dimensions as you go to create each line segment or each circle or any part feature. In this Inventor program, all you need to do is click anywhere, create the rectangle, create the shape that you're trying to create, and then you can dimension it afterwards. Alright, so I have the first line created, and I'm going to drag across until we see the perpendicular signs that appear up on the screen. Those perpendicular signs will tell us that the first line segment at the bottom intersects at a 90 degree with the top section of that line, or the second line. Click again, go up, and you're going to see an auto snap feature, which shows us that not only are these two lines going up, the vertical lines are parallel to each other, but we're also going to know that if we create an endpoint right where the crosshair is at this time, you're going to then be able to make a rectangle using what you have so far in that part of the geometry. So I'm going to click and drag across. There's my rectangle. If I Control Z and undo every single line that I created, there's an easier way. 2-point rectangle. Click, drag, done. So I clicked once and click again to create the rectangle. The next step, we go back into our tutorial, is to dimension the rectangle. Like I said, it's different from SketchUp. So we're going to start out with a distance of 304.8 millimeters and then a height of 50.8 millimeters. So let's do that. We're going to hit D for dimension, and notice how if I scroll down, the dimension tool has now been selected. Click on the line, drag it up, 304.8, enter. Click, drag, and click again. Double click on the dimension, and we're going to now change this to 50.8, enter. Notice that I did not have to enter the units of measure, such as mm, cm, or in. Since we're in metric, we are looking at millimeters, and everything we draw will be in millimeters. Alright, the next thing I want to do, just like we did in SketchUp, we zoomed to extents. So what I'd like to do is go to Zoom All, and what that will do for us, it's going to zoom everything into plain view so that we are now able to finish the 2D sketch and then move on to 3D. So right now we basically just drawn out the top view. That's the top view of the boat. So when I hit return, notice the grid lines disappear and the part features, which are 3D features, appear at the top left corner of the screen. These are my part features. If I use my orbit tool, or rotate, orbit is what we use on SketchUp, rotate is what we use on Inventor. I can rotate this onto an angle, and notice that my X, Y, and Z axis will change. Well, not change, but the viewing options will be a little bit different. So you now see that the X goes this way, red, Y goes up, and then you're able to actually see the Z. Instead of push-pulling like we did in SketchUp, we're going to use the extrude option. So it's going to select the only visible shape that we have on the screen, which was just created in this sketch. And we're going to choose the dimension to be 76.2 millimeters. So the distance is 76.2 millimeters from this face to wherever it needs to go, wherever we're pushing it out to. Just like we did in SketchUp, we specified the destination. Hit OK. All right, and there is our block. A common misconception for the next step is that some folks will end up starting their top and think that this is the top right here. This is not the top of the boat. That is actually the side. So you may mess up if you use this as the top. You want the widest part to be the top. So I'm going to click on the Look At tool, and I'm going to take a look at the top. If I go and grab the orbit again, you can generally see that this is the side, and you can tell it's not as tall as the top. So there you have it. There is the top. Next step, let's go back into our tutorial. So we've gone through all these steps right here that I walked you through. And we could save the file at this time. So let's go back in. Let's go to File, Save As, and save it into our H drive. And I'm just going to save over a file that I've created in the last class period. Period 1, my name, and the file type that we're creating, which is the boat. When you're finished, hit Save, and I'm going to replace it since, like I said, I'm just going over an old file. Okay, let's reorient the screen again. Here is the top. Let's start a sketch. Now, on the top of the drawing, we are going to be representing the top, this top right here. So in order to do that, I only have to do half of the drawing. Because if I draw a line of symmetry right down the middle, everything on one side will mirror reflect to the opposite side. So I only have to put part of the geometry here, one half of the geometry, and the other half will then be replicated by simply using my mirror option. So let's go ahead and draw a mirror line, or also known as a center line, and we will then be able to recreate the dimensions that we see on the rough sketch paper. So let's go back into Inventor and draw the line. So turn on the line tool, hit the center line, and find the midpoint. Once the midpoint has been found, go to the other midpoint. Just like in SketchUp, you find the midpoint and it highlights in green. There is my center line. In order to turn off the style of line, I need to go up the center line again, and now I will get a nice broad line anytime I make a new line. Now I'm going to take the line tool, and I need to get some of my measurements. So the first measurement is right here, 22 millimeters. And I'm also going to need 45 millimeters with an overall length of 240. Okay? So let's go back, and I'm going to draw a line from here to about here. And I'm going to dimension that, so I hit D, and I'm going to change that to 240 and hit Enter. So that is as far as my boat will go. Okay, and I just draw a line there just to represent that. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to go 22. So I'm going to dimension that line to be 22. Next line I'm going to do is right up here, which is going to be 45. So grab a line, dimension 45, and the last thing I need is the measurement right here. And let's go back just to double check, and that was 7. Okay, so you can see where your rough sketch dimensions are coming into play. So I'm going to grab the line and go down 7. And there might be some inconsistencies in the measurements that I created on the rough sketch, but we can modify those as we go. So if I'm not happy with what I see on the screen right now in full scale, I can always modify that to reflect what I currently want. Okay, so I'm going to use the line tool now, create a line from endpoint to endpoint, and I'm going to use the 3-point arc because I want to curve the front of the bow. So 2 points, I clicked on either point, and I can zoom in using the wheel of the mouse and figure out how I want the curve. Okay? Now, I need to get rid of some things. So in order to get out of any tool that we have currently selected, you will need to hit the escape key at the top left corner of the screen, or I'm sorry, the top left corner of your keyboard. And then I'm going to click on this dimension, delete it, click on this dimension, delete it, and all the other dimensions, as well as this line right here. I no longer need it. Okay? And in my tutorial, it tells me that I need to, let's go down and find where we're currently at, and I need to create what are called cookie cutter shapes. And we will basically be removing material from those areas so that we can better get a better idea of what the design will actually look like at the end. Remember, we are starting from the top, going to the side, then going to the back, okay, in order to create all 3 views that we need to create the overall design. Okay, so this is going to be how we create the cookie cutter shapes. So let's go back into Inventor, and I'm going to take my line tool, click on here, out, around, and back. Go out, around, zoom in, and this is where people mess up, you got to draw a line here too. Okay, now we're going to use the mirroring option. If I click on mirror, I need to establish where the mirror line will go and click on the mirror line. Then I can highlight all of the other parts of geometry so that they highlight blue. And then hit apply. And everything is on the opposite side. So it's mirror reflected. Hit done. And at this time, if I want to, this is where I said I can make modifications to my design. So if I zoom in, maybe I don't want this to be 7 millimeters. Maybe I want to go in a little bit further. So I click and drag that point to where I want it to be. Same with the front. I can drag this up to the front. Now back here, if I want to bring this back a little bit, I can too. So it's basically allowing us to drag our geometry wherever we need it to go. And we are finished, and so we will just simply click return. Once it's returned, we are now able to rotate and extrude. Basically, you're going to be pushing through. So I'm clicking on each of these segments right here. Highlight them in blue. And this is where I'm going to cut now. I'm cutting through the material the distance is going to go all the way through. If we leave the distance at 10 millimeters, it's going to only cut in 10 millimeters into the block, which will not work. So I need to change the distance to all, and we will see a directional arrow pointing in the direction that the parts will be removed from the material. Hit OK, and there is what you get left over. So at this point, I can grab the Look At tool, and we can move on to the look. I'm sorry, actually that's not going to work. Let's go back and orbit or rotate and flip it, because we want the back of the boat on the left-hand side and we want the front of the boat towards the right. So I can toggle back and forth. This is a good time to show you that you can toggle back and forth between the rotating options that you have. 7th graders seem to be able to use the rotating option, this one right here, where you click and drag it to wherever you want. They like that one better than this option right here with the 3D cube. It is entirely up to you how you want to do it. To get out of that, once again, hit Escape. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to now start another sketch. Start a sketch right on this flat surface. Now, you see a purple box that goes around the flat surface, but you don't see any purple lines around the other sides. And that is because if we rotate this, those are parts that curve back. That's geometry that is curved back. So if I want to include that geometry as a snapping point, I need to go into my tool, Project Geometry. So it's going to make it easier on us when we draw our lines. So click here, 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 and here. And now when I rotate it again, you will see that I've now been able to record the geometry from those curves into the 2D sketch that I'm currently working on. Let's go into let's go back into Blackboard to the tutorial, and we are now at this step right here. Okay, where we're going to be able to create the front of the boat, the bow, and the stern. Okay, so we're almost 2/3 of the way through. So let's go back into Inventor, and this is a good time to show you how the Spline Tool works. The Spline Tool is another line tool, but the difference between the line tool and the Spline Tool is that a line tool has 2 endpoints. A Spline Tool has points that go along the entire segment that you create, and what that allows you to do is to curve the actual line into any shape that you want. You're able to add points or insert points or delete those points depending on what you want. So let's go and click on the down arrow and click on Spline. I'm going to start right here. Click once. I'm going to put another endpoint there, or not an endpoint, an actual point. Another point here, and I'm going to go all the way through and double click. Escape to get out of that line again. So here is my spline. And with this, I can actually click and drag the points, so you can see how it's a flexible curve. Okay, if I like how it is right there, I can leave it. If I want to move this point down, I can do that as well. The other thing that you can do, like I said, is you can delete points or add points. So if I wanted to add a point, I right-click on the line segment, and I'm going to insert point. So I'm going to put one right there. If I wanted to delete that point, I right-click on it and just hit delete, and it's gone. Oops, made a mistake there. I wanted to delete the point, so right-click on the point itself, and actually you don't have to right-click. You can just click on the point and delete it, and it's gone. So you can see it's gone. Alright, so let's create the cookie cutter shape. Back into my Spline tool. Go all the way around. Connect. And let's go back to the stern. On the stern, I'm simply going to use a 3-point arc because in my drawing it shows, let's go back to the drawing. In my drawing it shows that I just have a simple curve right here. And it's important right now to understand that you leave some part of the back flat because later on you're going to need, when you do the front and back view, you're going to need a flat 2D surface to work from. If every side of your boat is rounded, you're going to have issues. Okay, so let's go back and let's make that 3-point arc happen. So click once on the first endpoint, second endpoint, and make the curve however you want it to be. Grab the line tool, finish the cookie cutter shape, and hit return. Let's rotate on an angle, and let's extrude. Remember that at this time the extrusion needs to go all the way through the boat, or all the way through the block, because we don't really have a boat yet. It's just still a block. So cutting, distance, all. Cut, all, distance, all. Okay. Alright, so there is the second part. Alright, we're at 2/3 of the way through. The last thing we need to do now. So there's the top, here's the side. Let's go back to our rough sketch. And let's look how similar they are. Very similar. The last thing we're on here now. So let's go back in our directions. And we're now ready to create either this is the hull shape type that we're going to be creating. You can decide to do a catamaran at this time, which is going to include 2 hulls, or a trimaran, which is 3 hulls, or a simple mono hull, which could be a displacement or planing hull, which essentially is just one curve or flat bottom. So let's go back to our Inventor, pull it to the back, and let's zoom in. Start a sketch on the only flat 2D surface that we have. So this is why it was important in the last step to make sure that there is still some type of flat part there. So let's zoom in, and once again we're going to need project geometry in order to know where the end my limits are. Know your limits. Okay, so there are all the purple lines. Here as well I can choose a center line. So I'm going to grab the center line tool, and I'm going to come in here and find the midpoint, and I'm going to create a center line. Turn the center line off, and then let's go ahead and create. I'm going to make a catamaran. Okay, well we'll first start with a simple displacement hull with a flat bottom. Actually, this is more of a planing hull with a flat bottom. Okay, that would be just doing that part. If I wanted to make that a catamaran, I would come in here then, come straight up, and there we go. All that I need to do now is create the cookie cutter shapes and mirror it. Let's go and grab the mirror tool, mirror line, click on the mirror line, click on all the edges that I need to mirror to the opposite side. Hit apply, everything's done. Let's rotate it again, zoom in, and then let's hit return because we're finished with the sketch. Remember that every time the grid erases, we're now in 3D. And then let's hit extrude. So let's push on this, just like the push-pull feature. I highlight everything, and I'm going to change the direction so it cuts into the block and goes all the way through. So I see my red arrow indicating that we're going to cut all the way through the boat. Hit OK, and you should now be able to see the finished product. So there is now your catamaran. Notice that there are 2 holes, one here and one here, and there's the tunnel section, which is tunneled out for you to provide less resistance. Alright, so hit the escape to get out of that tool. And at this time you can try to use the fillet tool by going in and using the fillet tool. Sometimes you can curve edges. Fillets just add a curve to the line. Okay, and it doesn't always work. So if I hit apply, I may get an error message for that, which is what I got right there. So depending on your design, you may be able to curve it more. The inside here, I could try a fillet on the inside, here and here. If that works, and I highlighted more than one thing, and it did work. Let's see if that worked. Yeah, we applied a fillet there. If I want to edit that fillet, all I have to do is right click on the fillet, edit the feature, and let's try something else. Let's try 8. Yeah, you could see that I kind of messed that up a little bit, but either way, hit OK. And you can't really tell that it's messed up. So let's rotate again to the front, and I basically pulled out more surface area in the front. Remember that the least amount of surface area is going to give you the best design, and it's going to be a faster, obvious design. Let's hit escape. Let's get out of there, and let's rotate it, and it should be finished. Last thing I want to show you is that where you see the model options here, this is basically your history. So if you want to go back and edit anything along the way, all you have to do is mouse over each one of these. And for example, if I wanted to change this extrusion right here, I'm going to go into the extrusion and click on the sketch, right click, edit the sketch, and I can go back in, rotate it obviously. I can go in and change things. So I could actually go in and move this forward, hit return, and it was changed. So you can go back in your history and change your history, just like, well, you can't do that in real life obviously, but on Inventor it will work. So that is all we need to do for the Inventor drawing. The last thing you need to do is save it. So go to File, Save It, and just hit Save. Or you can use the floppy disk icon right here as well. So that is all you have to do. And that is your finished product. And the last thing you need to do later is watch the next video, which will show you how to create the 3-view drawing.